Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Hi, everybody from South Africa. Yay, sunny should I say sunny, rainy South Africa? We have both. Um, so hi, everybody. Welcome because you found your way to the Sacred Wisdom Circle. Here we remember what the world has asked us to forget. That you're not lost, you're not broken, you are the light. And we welcome you in adding your light to ours. So, over to you, ladies. Yay.
I'm so
Hello,
excited to be
hello,
here.
and welcome everybody. Glad to be here.
Me too. Let's chat about how the week's been for everybody. I would love to hear.
I was just going to say that you were talking about earlier on, just before the cameras went on, that you're in gratitude. So I'd love to hear this. What a wonderful way to start off the call today with gratitude.
Yes.
There's been some things unfolding lately that it's just like, you know what? I'm just in gratitude of what's coming through right now, what we're creating and bringing into the world, us collectively and us collectively. I know there is heaviness and chaos and like fear and all of this stuff that's going on in the world, but for those of us, I'll speak for myself maybe for the creation that's gone on. I had a beautiful meeting with some colleagues this morning of something that we're creating together here on the island, and it's just like I have such a clear vision of what we're creating and what's happening with even with each of us in these circles. And it just feels so dang good, not just in the what we're creating, but in the gratitude of being here to receive that message of this is what you're meant to do and this is the next thing you're going to do, and being in the receivership of the idea and knowing that part of that transition, that catalyst to bring some of the change forward. I'm just in gratitude of all of that. um yeah, and I was just literally before we got on the call, I was here for about a few minutes before between calls, and that's what came through was just like I'm just so grateful to be in this space where I could be a news anchor that's sharing chaos. You know what I mean? Not that they're doing it on purpose, but it's like I'm in a space where, and I think all of us collectively are in a space where we're bringing light into the world and the impact that each one of us and the ripple effect that we all make that are in this space. And it just feels good.
Yep.
I'm just
I
grateful
echo
to be
that.
here.
I absolutely echo that. And yeah, we also have just come out of Scorpio season, moving into Sage season. And Scorpio, with Pluto being the god of the underworld, is going to expose what needs to be exposed for the sake of transformation and transmutation individually and collectively. And so a lot of what's being exposed, whether it's, who cares, whether it's the fittest, it doesn't matter. Whatever's being exposed is being brought into the light. And there's a higher energy of Scorpio, not just the sting in the tail of the Scorpio, but the higher vibration is the rising into, it's moving with the transformation and the transmutation. And that higher octave of Scorpio is actually the Phoenix. And so interesting because we're moving into the fire energy with Sagittarius. So, and I know that, I mean, a lot of the accounts have been for the Scorpio new moon, that it's been quite crazy for a lot of people. So if you've been feeling a whole lot of discombobulation, fear, uncertainty, know that underneath the stuff that's needing to be shaken out and brought into the surface is what's going on. But I shouldn't say not but, and we get to transmute that and to move into the higher energy. And that's also where the gratitude comes in, is because
Mhm.
being able to see that this is the transmutation actually happening,
Yes.
that we're a part of that transmutation, is just amazing.
Mm-hmm. And like you said about the transitioning, it's like we're also going from the year of the snake to the year of the horse. And the snake is also about shedding the old and removing that old skin and the things that are no longer serving us and paying attention to what's going on. And so there's going to be an unsheathing, like a removal of all of this stuff, right? So yeah, that transition. Oh, just so good.
And yeah, the gratitude for all of the shedding that has taken place to be where we are, because we've done the work and we're doing the work. And
Mhm.
that is, the work is the shedding.
Mhm.
The messy middle is the work. Hey, Pam.
Hello. You know what?
Donna?
am in so much gratitude myself and seeing, and not only for myself, the transformations that are happening right now, but for many of my clients that, have like they're being pushed to the brink. They really are. So a lot of breakthroughs for people and not breakdowns, but literally breakthroughs that have been in the past miscommunicated as breakdowns. And it's fabulous and it's fascinating. And I'm finding that the more that I am honoring myself, the more that things are opening up, expanding, and coming together. It's very exciting. And I love the whole fact that we're going into Sag that you're talking about. It's going to be the year of the horse. I am Sag. I'm right on the cusp. My birthday's on Sunday. It's that
Okay.
element. It's that element of freedom. Like we are freeing ourselves from the chains and from the things, the beliefs, the judgments that have been holding us back. So it's that
Mhm.
freedom that we're starting to step into. And Angela, you had mentioned about, things being uncovered or brought to the light. And there is so much of that going on around the world right now.
Yeah.
And what I often let people know is like, we are going to be impacted by the things that not necessarily someone else is impacted by. So, using myself as an example, years ago, I stopped watching the news because I knew it wasn't healthy, it wasn't good. There's still a lot of people watching news. Now, they're going to get to that same point as I did at some point that, you know what, it really doesn't serve to be listening to it or watching it. Um, it's really important to be neutral in
Mhm.
all of this. That neutrality is not burying your head in the sand. It's about, yes, it's out there, acknowledging that it's there, but staying in your own state and place of peace and contentment and gratitude, no matter how small it might seem. I think that's the other thing too. Everybody
Yeah.
thinks that we have to be grateful. No, I get to be grateful. There's a huge difference in the energy there. And it can be as small or as large as you want it to be, right? So it's not getting caught up necessarily in how grandiose it might be. Because I think, again, success, that word of success for people is it's like it's got to be grandiose. I had a conversation with a couple yesterday. A house doesn't mean you're successful,
Mhm.
right? That is an old construct of status. And
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yep.
it's not the material things. And that's the lovely thing. It's not the amount of money that we're making. These things are great and they do help in our wealth and our being able to do more of what we're doing. But
Yeah.
who we are isn't hinged on that,
Yeah.
Mhm.
any capacity.
It's also for me, and I love what you're saying, Pam, because it's also where what do they say? Where thought goes, energy flows. And so if our thoughts are in the fear, if we are, it's like my daughter, they love these series on these mass murderers and, she's got a psychology background and she loves the psychology that sits behind it. And
Yes.
then I kind of go to, well, why do you watch that stuff? Because you're just feeding into that energy. Oh, but because it fascinates me in terms of the psyche and what makes people do things. I said, okay, well, I'm not judging, but it comes back to the question of things like the news. The more people feed into that, the more they are exacerbating the energy as opposed to stepping back from the energy. And again, I think, Pam, you often come circle back to this around the fact that we have a choice. We have a choice as to what we're going to be absorbing. We have a choice as to whether we sit in gratitude or whether we don't, whether we go to victimhood or whether we go into the energy of being in our more sovereign selves. Every single thing, every single day, we are faced with a myriad of choices. And it's about whether we're present, whether we're conscious, whether we're aware, whether we're willing to let go of old, outdated paradigms and frequencies. All of those things coming into this hodgepodge of, I can make a choice that's going to make a difference.
That very much is about the free will that we have, right, in our human experience.
Correct.
And there is no right or wrong in that. It's okay. What are we learning from it? And making no choice. A lot of people will talk about, I need to do this or I should do this, which are words that kind of back you into a corner, but they're still making the choice to do nothing. And that is still a choice. Doing nothing is a choice.
Yep.
So again, being really aware of that, what do I want to do differently moving forward? And how do I want to improve not just my life experience, but how do I want to improve who I am, how I'm showing up, right? It all starts with ourselves.
Yep.
Doesn't start with the world out there first at all. It
Nope.
starts with ourselves first.
We have to go through the transition, the transformation in order for us to bring the light, to be the example that, again, we hear that before too. It's like be the example that you want to see in the world, to be the version that you want to be in the world. And we can um point fingers and blame others and complain about the things that are going on. But again, that's still not helping. Like you said, Angela, it's not helping the energy. That's because we're putting the focus on all of the things that are wrong. And when we start bringing, there is no right or wrong, but it's like choosing, like you said earlier, Pam, we have the power of choice, and we get to choose what we put our energy to by what we're paying attention to, by what we're choosing to watch, even. And so we get to bring in that light by doing the work for ourselves, like really tapping into who we are, what we want. Like you said, success was an old construct of like it needs to look like this, and you have bigger houses. And like you said, it has no what size of house you have and what type of vehicle you have doesn't mean you're successful, because you could be super in debt with all of those things and it's not furthering you ahead, because you could still feel unworthy. You can still feel um in a lot of lower vibrations with those things. So those things have no difference unless you have the light within you, right? And that's what amplifies. But like you said, money is just an amplifier. So
Yep.
if we're sitting here going, I have all this money, that's great, but if I'm feeling negative and bad and guilty and whatever, etc., lonely, all of these things, then that's what you're gonna like. That big house is just gonna feel more lonely, even though you have space
Mm.
for more. It's bringing in that. So it's like, what if your money was amplifying or like helping you support your light, that you've gone through that transition yourself, and then you get to bring others with you, or you get to invest into supporting things that help others. So that's kind of that shift, right?
We've
And
been
that's and Alana, sorry, Angela, that is exactly what I see happening is as individuals, we are all doing our own transformative work, and we are bringing people along with us in a variety of ways. And I believe every human being has the potential to do that in whatever they are doing. Doesn't
Yes.
matter what line of work you're in. It's that
Mm-mm.
when you're making your transformation, the world around you is going to be impacted by that. You're going to be able to speak to the people in your part of the world about, your own growth and be that example, right? But it doesn't matter. I think this is the healing ability that we actually all have in the simplest way of explaining it.
Yeah.
Doing our
Yeah.
own work, first and foremost, you're going to be a shining example for other people who are going to align with you, resonate with you, and hear your story. And when you think about old traditional ways, everything was taught through stories.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was shared in the way of through stories. So,
Yep.
us sharing our stories from that place of light, from that place of transformation, that I see having the ripple effect. And that's why things are so quickly moving forward in that way for the globe.
Yeah. And I think, we've been taught and socialized, and all of us have come from this space. It's not that, we might, or for each one of us, have done a lot of work internally, but we all came from a space where we were told and taught to wallpaper the inner cracks with the external manifestation of stuff.
Yeah.
That's what we were taught. Those
Yep.
were the definitions of success that we were given. And I mean, even from a purely psychological point of view, let alone a spiritual point of view, if we choose to alter our locus of control from outside of ourselves to inside of ourselves, which is actually the start of the spiritual journey anyway, it's that shift to the internal locus of control, as opposed to giving our power away to all of those so-called status symbols that are out there. You know, the number of likes on Facebook and how many Instagram followers I've got, and all of that is still giving our power away, as opposed
Yeah.
to getting into a space of we put a message out into the world and it's going to land where it's going to land without any sense of expectation of how many people, who, how often, and feeding this monster machine, which is all just, again, another sheep in wolf's clothing around
Mhm.
what success is. It's still an externalization as opposed to this is who I am and this is what I have to offer the world from a space of gratitude and humility. And so I think for me, what's important for people who are watching the show is that we're not coming to you walking on water. We've done the work. We've come from where you may be finding yourself now. And
Yes.
we have followed other people who have been on a journey before us and learned from them. So it's not a case of, yeah, we're coming to you going, you know, we're walking on water and all the rest of that stuff. Not at all. We've gone through the messy.
100% enlightened. Yeah. Right.
Absolutely. And we've gone through that messy many times and will continue to do so because we're evolving all the time.
Mhm.
And, you know, we've all got to all work, doing the work through the shadow, our own individual shadows, coming into our life. And that's how we contribute to the upliftment of the consciousness of the planet. It's not the big, grandiosity stuff. That doesn't work. It's spiritual glamour as opposed
Mm.
to
I love
being.
that.
Yeah, ego in another way. And what I also too, when you talk about the inner work and that being the beginning of our spiritual journey, I like to say we're on the spiritual journey even when we're not aware of it. It's just that awareness is what nails it home, basically. Right? Like I know from when I had my awakening back in 2005, 2006, I I was blown away of how much the universe, when I reflected back on my life, was working through me and with me. And again, I'm no different than you guys. I'm no different than the one listeners here. We all are on a purpose and a point. And even the small things that you don't think about, just living your own life, you are making an impact. You are helping to elicit change and growth. When you become aware, what's lovely about that is you can relax into it a little more. You
Yeah.
can start to get honest with yourself because you're not hiding things
Mhm.
from yourself anymore. But the spiritual journey is from the moment we're coming into this world.
Yeah.
The awareness is just bringing it home.
And like for those that are listening too, if you're like, oh, where am I on the spectrum or whatever? It's like I find, like you said, Angela, like it's that turn inward. And it's usually in those moments where it's like, I feel like there's more. There's more to life. There's more to the experience. There's more to that. But that feeling is, and how I share with people is like, that's kind of your soul saying, hello, I'm here. I need that awareness. And that's like when we talk about spiritual awakening, that's kind of what we're feeling. But it's like you said, Pam, like we're always been an energetic being, a soul, a spirit within the human experience. And we just didn't see it as that right away. And so it's just a matter of kind of stepping into what is that for you, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you say that, Pam. I was doing a lot of writing, journaling. In fact, this whole week's been journaling. I've just had downloads again, days of it. And one of the things that came up in my writing this morning was in reflecting back, we, and it's again about the awareness. We may not even be aware of how we've been showing up, but we've been still showing up in a level of truth that is relevant for us at that point. And also that the way that spirit works is that all those doors that closed, certainly in my space, all those doors that seemingly closed, all those spaces where I felt like I was outside, on the outside of the window looking into everybody else and everybody else having this great time, was a way of my higher power protecting me from engaging in energies and vibrations that were not meant for me anyway. And
Yes, absolutely.
when I saw that today, it was like, phew, all these scales just dropped off. It's almost like that, the cloth in the temple dropping down to be able to actually realize and see truth. So, and coming back to what you're saying, nothing is wrong. Nothing. Everything is exactly as it's meant to be for our soul's growth. And
Absolutely.
when we get to that level of acceptance, yes, and the willingness, but also the acceptance of, oh, now I can see why that happened, and I can see why that happened. And it was funny things like one of the realizations that I had today, we have a framework here in our education system called the National Qualifications Framework, which is, don't even get me going on what it's done to the education system. And I've never, ever fitted into that. I mean, I went under the radar when I was still in the corporate world. I went zing under the radar, not kind of doing my assessor qualification, not doing a coaching qualification. I'm talking coaching back 20 years ago, not doing that because it's not the fit for me. It doesn't mean to say that it's wrong for somebody else or it's right for somebody else. It didn't fit me. And so I was able to look back on things like, oh, that's why that happened when I was in the world of work. That's why when, a comment that I would put forward felt like it landed on deaf ears. It wasn't because I wasn't good enough. It was because there wasn't a frequency match. And that's one of the things that as you're listening, you might be also seeing and experiencing going, oh, that's why that didn't work out, because the vibration and the frequency didn't match, not because I'm not good enough, I don't matter, or I'm not enough. And so we start to erase all of those erroneous beliefs based on a construct that we thought was our story, which is not our story anyway.
Yeah.
So true. We're working with people over the last couple of days, helping them to exactly see that their family dynamic. They're the angel, what I call the angel in amongst the chaos. They're the one that is stepping up to break those constructs, but they're still stuck in the stories of what they believe, that they're not good enough or it's their fault. And so you can see the shoulders drop when they go, oh, now that makes so much more sense. And helping them to understand that you don't have to take it personally. They may
Yep.
show up at a later time in your life where you guys are aligned again and it be beautiful, but that you're not meant to be on that part of that leg of the journey, because they have to learn from other people. We are beings of experience. We all have wisdom, but it's our experiences that awaken the wisdom. And there's no way possible that we can all be awakening and doing things at the same time, because it would be pandemonium. So it's that
And boring.
probably boring too.
Yeah, well, it would be chaos and boring because we're all kind of going through the same journey at the same. It would be like trying to, yeah, no.
And also what you're saying, Pam, is there's no spiritual bypass.
No, there is not.
And there's no kind of quick fix, here's your 5 steps to ascension. It doesn't work like that.
No.
It's no instant gratification in terms of, I'm now an enlightened being. It doesn't work like that at all.
Well, that spiritual glamour made me giggle because there is a lot of that out there.
Yeah.
Right? Spiritual glamour. And it's like, it's not real. It's not built on a foundation that's solid. But again, people are going to have to experience what they need to experience to understand that. So being the seer of truth in our own right, as we are, right, with the people that we come into contact with, it's a blessing and a curse sometimes, right? Being that seer of truth, because you can see it all. You can see the good, the bad, and the ugly. When you can see it and own it for yourself, it's very easy to see it in other people. But it's not our job to bring that to their attention.
No.
But now we have to look at, okay, is this person aligned with me? Is this working for me anymore? So, it's really looking at, okay, I have grown and I want to honor that growth, but I don't want to knock somebody in the process. So the question that I bring to the table for everybody that's watching is this aligned with me? Is this person aligned with me? Is what this person's doing aligned with me? And it's either yes or no. We are like a pendulum for ourselves. It's either yes or no, and then we act accordingly. But in that process, there's no judgment on the person.
Mm-mm.
There's no judgment on their story. Because, who made us all God in the sense of like we can tell what's right or wrong or good or bad for somebody. It's an element of maybe that's exactly what they need to experience for their soul's growth. My son is dealing with addictions. He's in jail right now. I'm having a conversation with him. And what does he share with me? I'm taking a psychology course. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm so proud of you. Like, you don't know where someone's journey is going to lead them. And I've always said, I will love you. I don't like your decisions, but I will love you unconditionally, because that as a human being is what you deserve.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I will speak the truth with you. You might not like the truth, but his journey is his journey. And it's so freeing to not take on the story that I used to take on of
Yeah.
guilt and shame and, oh my God, what did I do wrong? How have I contributed to this? It's like on some levels, there's some facts in there that have contributed to his, but again, it's about our journey together for my growth and his growth.
Mhm.
And so it's freeing to not be so trapped in the story and allow us both to the freedom to grow and be who we are in our story, in our human experience, to awaken the wisdom that we have.
There's another aspect to this as well, and that's something that's really strong for me at the moment, and that is we all just mirrors of each
Yeah.
other.
Yes.
That's who we are. And if there's something that's going on that I'm not liking about somebody else, it's like they help me to remove the splinter out of, what's that quote about taking the splinter out of somebody else's eye, and I've got a log in my own. It's about the fact that I had a conversation with somebody this morning, and which seems like a long time ago because we are now sitting at 7:30 p.m. in the evening. So it does. You know, I had a conversation with somebody this morning where she was so in her will, and the mirror back for me was I collapsing into her where she was? Or was I able to stay in my own truth and just mirror back for her? Whether she got it or not, not up to me. But it's again coming back into that space of this is my sense of sovereignty of who I am. It's not about judging her. It's about here's another opportunity for me to stand in my truth again. Whether somebody accepts it or not is not my responsibility at all. And those are the kinds of enmeshments that we start to let go of more and more and more as we step more into our own truth. And so again, if you're looking at what kinds of enmeshments are sitting in your space, those are the mirrors that are being held up for you to unenmesh yourself. And we've all done that. We've all done that work again. And so for me, and coupled with gratitude is a very real presence of humility and not for 1 minute taking for granted where I've come from.
Mm.
Being in that space of remembering because I'm not better than, none of us are. None of us are better than, we're not worse than, we just are. And as you said earlier, Pam, we are all children of a much bigger power and a much bigger energy and frequency. And so, we've got that beautiful saying of Ubuntu, which translates into I am because of you. And, even in this kind of environment, I am because of the two of you. We are because of the people who are listening to and engaging with what we're talking about. So we can never be completely independent of, because there is automatically that connection of I am because of you. And in my I amness, because of what you're reflecting to me, I get the opportunity to learn and grow. And so thank you for being my teacher.
Oh, it's brilliant. And even that speaks to like you going back to what you'd said earlier, Angela, about the spiritual bypassing. Like we've been created to have that reflection or be that reflection, but it's like we see, and we touched on this a little earlier too, is that like we see that journey for others and we want to be able to help them, but we can't. Even if a person wants to go the quick way and have the step-by-step process, there is no step-by-step. And even if you try to avoid it, you try to do the spiritual bypassing, you try to get the step-by-steps, you try to avoid it, the universe will not let you because you'll just find the lesson somewhere else, even though you're like, oh, I've figured it out. I've got this real quick pill or scheme or thing to maneuver myself around it. But the universe has a way of showing that reflection back in a different way. So no matter how much we try to manipulate and control, the universe is like, haha, too bad. I got another way for you to learn that, right? So it's that it's got a way of humbling us in the process, even though sometimes we're like, again, oh yeah, I feel like I've gone through this journey, I've been enlightened, I've had this spiritual awakening, and now I know. And then something else comes into play, and then you're like, oh, okay, now I need to learn this other lesson. We're never getting to the end of the journey. We can't bypass our way to it, but the mirror is always there whenever things show up in the
And that
process.
And that mirror can be a mirror of clarity, or it could be the hall of mirrors that you go into at the circus, where all the distortions are being shown to us. Our own distortions are being shown to us, not anybody else's.
Yeah.
That's the mirror as well, as it's showing. Not only does it show us our growth, but it also shows, here's another piece that's coming into the light and it needs to be seen.
Exactly.
But also that, the universe has a huge sense of humor as well, in the sense that, well, when we're in it, it's not funny, but when we're out of it, we can actually see the humor of it. In the same lesson being presented by maybe different people, which is what you're alluding to, Alana, is that,
Yeah.
but it's still the same lesson. It might come through somebody else or a different circumstance, but it's still that part of the ego that's being mirrored to us that we need to work on and work through. So yeah, there's a cosmic joke at play as well in all of this.
Well, and it's also that element of people think people like us have all the answers, right? We don't have all the answers for another person. It's virtually impossible. We can develop things that can help and that you can apply. But if you're meant to learn something, sometimes what you're going through isn't going to work for you because you have your own individual experiences that you have to go through.
Yeah.
Or you learn something, doesn't make a whole lot of sense in that moment, right? So you're kind of put aside, which is what you're supposed to do, but then you have an experience that actually solidifies that learning. And I know for me that happened a lot. I mean, I was doing things and it wasn't until later that I was able to go, oh, I just learned that and that's what I'm doing. There's a name for it, right?
Mhm.
It's that whole element of just trusting in our process, and we are shown the way. We are given things, but we don't have to take somebody's ABCD, this is the way it's done, and expect the magic to just happen. It's not that way. It really is not.
It can't work that way because,
No,
again, we all
yeah.
have our own perception, our own experience, we come in with our own filter from what we've experienced in our life. Like I said, very experiential beings. And it's like what works for one person is they teach that way then. So, like, again, even that's why each of us could teach in our own different way, because I have a perception and a filter that I've received, and I could see what you need. And like you said, yes, maybe we've sometimes the ego will say we feel like we have the answer because I could feel what you see. But again, I could tell you till I'm blue in the face. But if you're not open to receive it, if you're not at that stage, or if you're not if there's something different you need to perceive it as, then it's going to be that, not what I feel and what I have. Even if I give you the step by step process of how I think I got from here to there, it's only going to work for somebody who's very like minded to me or very much has a very similar journey to me. Will that be relatable? Yes, but not for everybody. It's not a carbon copy answer for everybody.
Not
Well,
meant
I
to.
mean, look at all the self-help books that are out there,
Yeah,
right?
right?
Like, you think that the world would be in a better state with all of those beautiful self-help books. But again, we're beings of experience.
Mhm.
And, you're right. Ego can step in, that we think we can see what someone else needs. That's why it's always important to take that step back. But it's that element. We can't want for someone else more than they want for themselves.
Absolutely.
And so this is across the board, not just for those of us who are working with people, but in your own family dynamic.
Yeah.
Families want to step in and fix things for someone else. You can't want it more than they want it. If you're wanting it more, that's creating that enmeshment. It's also sometimes pushing the relationships aside because they're not ready to receive what it is that you want to help with.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I wrote something this morning which I'd like to share, if you don't mind. It was just
Hopes.
um so these are my people. The truth tellers, the pattern breakers, the soul returners, the shadow walkers, the presence seekers. The ones who listen to their bodies, the ones who live at the edge of transformation, the ones who know how to walk through fire and still choose light, the ones who feel life deeply, who sense what others cannot name, who carry wisdom in their bones, who refuse to apologize for their truth, and who are learning to stand in their sovereignty without shrinking, performing, or pretending. These are my people, not perfect, not polished, not strategic, but real, embodied, awake, and becoming. The ones who are finally finding spaces that can hold their frequency and remembering that they were never meant to fit inside systems that could not see them.
Oh, That is lovely and damn
Powerful.
accurate.
Mhm.
No, when I was writing that this morning, and again, part of this was the release of how many. Again, when we look back, we can see that there's so much clarity of how
Okay, I
many.
want to pause for one quick second. You wrote that or you found that somewhere?
I wrote it.
Okay, perfect. I love that. Thank you for sharing.
You're very welcome. I think the thing that came up for me was how many times have I tried to fit into a system, and in so doing, eked away my sense of authenticity, eked away my sense of knowingness in terms of who I am, and having given away not only my power, but given myself away into a system that wasn't ready to accommodate any of what I had to share. And so some of you may be feeling like that as well. If you're sitting in situations where the doors just seem to be closing, or you're not being heard, you're not being seen, well, those kinds of environments is probably not where you're meant to be seen or heard either. Not that there's anything wrong with you, but in trying to fit into the mold of somebody else, perhaps you're one of these people who is a truth seeker, who is wanting to step into a whole different way of being. And we get a lot of that coming out of our solar plexus chakra, which is telling us that's our barometer of telling us. It's certainly for me has become my authenticity measure. If I feel peaceful within my solar plexus energy, just underneath the rib cage, and we know, the mental body will shout it out. But if your solar plexus is kind of tapping you and going, that's not the way we want you to go, there's a whole nother route for you to follow. If that's where you find yourself, then yay, you're in absolutely the right place, because that's really waking up again into what Pam was talking about earlier on, being more conscious and waking up into your truth. And that for me those are my people. And it's taken
I
me
love
forever.
that. And thank you
Mhm.
for sharing that. One, that you wrote it because that's beautiful. Um, but the other thing too is like you said, if any of that resonates with you, and when I started my podcast, that feeling of more 2 years ago, 3 years ago now. If you go back to that, one of the things that came out almost every episode, and what I was doing in that first section of that podcast was interviewing spiritual entrepreneurs. And it's funny because it was like as I did the interview, it was constantly the same type of person who very much like you said, growing up was never allowed to express. We never fit into a box. I know for myself, I'll speak for myself, it was like I was kind of the outcast. A lot of us, like I know Pam and I've had this conversation, but being the lone wolf, like we feel like we're this person that doesn't fit into the society's box or the norms when you get into school. Like as a child, we usually feel like we're the outcast or whatever because we're not fitting into the cliques and that type of thing. And that's what the conversation that we had consistently in that podcast was like people that were sharing that I didn't fit in when I was younger, or I had this feeling like we couldn't talk about spirituality, we couldn't talk about the woo woo, we couldn't talk about these things, and doors were shut because or we shut ourselves up because we didn't feel like we could express. It wasn't a safe space to express. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing that, and the fact that we weren't meant to fit in the boxes, and I take that as an empowerment piece of like, well, no wonder none of it fit before. Now it's like, finally, I get to create my own dang box. Anyway,
I don't
I'm
even
not.
want to be in a box
Well,
anymore.
that's
It
what I
was so
mean.
fun.
Yeah.
I had an experience one morning. I was again during my quiet time, and I was going through it was after a period where, after the collapse from COVID, and there's a whole backstory to that, which I won't bore everybody with, but it really put me on the outside of my entire family. And I was working my way through all of this, and very often, and it came up quite often. You know the story of the poor little match girl standing on the outside looking in her little rags and watching everybody having Christmas and all of that stuff. And I often used to feel that way. And one morning, as I was journaling and writing, I felt, because I was doing quite a lot of inner child work at the time, and I just felt like this little tap on my shoulder. And it was my inner child. I'm a somatic seer, okay, so I feel it in my body, and I could feel this little energy around me. And she tapped me on the shoulder and she said, why don't you turn around and come and play with all of us in the garden? And that moment completely liberated me from that old paradigm of I need to fit into places where I don't fit into. where there was a whole nother environment, which is my people, my people, where I can play. And that playground is so much better than sitting around a table
Oh my gosh.
um, in an old paradigm, in an old box. It's so much more fun. Um, and so hopefully part of what we are sharing with you today is highlighting for you where you might be on your spiritual path. And you may be identifying with some of these aspects that we've been talking about so that you can see also, A, that you're not alone, B, that you're not going cuckoo, and C, that you do belong. You belong in a space that is nurturing, where you are able to stand in your truth, offer that truth out into the world, and have that truth being received as you receive the truth from other people. So it's not that you don't fit in, it's just the places where are you looking to fit in.
Mm.
And no longer do you need to dilute yourself to fit
Absolutely.
in.
Yeah.
Just
So
do you and be you wherever you are because you're making a difference.
yeah,
Pam, you had
you
go
don't
ahead.
have to collapse into other people's story.
You had mentioned earlier, Pam, about the fact that you don't have to even be like, again, service provider or healer, blah, 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 any
No,
of
not at all.
you can bring that. Our purpose isn't so much a thing. Again, it's not a material thing. It's not the role that you play. It is specifically what you bring into the world. And whether you're a journalist, whether you're a secretary, whether you're a waitress, it doesn't matter what role you play. It's the
Yep.
light you bring, and it's the experience that you bring to the room or to the table or to the space or to the person next to you. It
How
has,
you touch people's lives,
yeah.
absolutely, no matter what you're doing.
hmm That's more our purpose than anything. We feel like the purpose is something, and it is nothing in particular other than being the authentic, like solar plexus version of ourselves that have always been meant to be.
And that's where we start to find joy and laughter again as well.
Yes.
Uh,
Our inner
it's
spark.
that inner, that sheer joy of being alive, of being connected to source and connected to people who are not the same, but similar to us. So yeah. So hopefully, I think does that bring us to where we're needing to end off today? I know.
Sure.
Well, like, no, we kind of going 46 minutes. Um,
We're good.
it's flown by this evening. Well, for me this evening, for you this morning, it's flown by today. So if you are, if you kind of see us on TV, Pam can tell you more about that. Invite other people who are going through similar experiences to you to be able to come and join us in this community and this connection. Pam, I don't know if you want to say a little bit about the TV
Sure. For
station.
anyone who's looking, you can actually go to Rogers 10 TV in Georgina, and we are every Friday
That's in
night.
Ontario for
It's
those
in
that aren't.
Ontario, but you can find it online.
Yeah.
So through the Rogers TV app and website, where we are airing these shows on there, which is absolutely exciting and lovely. But also come to our YouTube,
Mhm.
right? Share with people. Make like we're open for comments and questions. Let us know what you think, what you feel, whether you're contacting the TV station, whether you're on our YouTube. We look forward to serving you and allowing this to continue and shedding light and love with all of you.
Mhm.
And if there's any areas that you're wanting us to discuss, things that you're wanting to explore or that you're not understanding or that you'd like us to shed a little bit of light on, if we can, and it is if we can, we're only happy to do that too. Alana, any final words from you today?
No, I'm good. I'm excited to be here and just in gratitude for what we've created and where we're going and the opportunity that we have to be able to bring light to the world.
Absolutely. And so let me get us to where we need to be. And so thank you for joining us. As the circle closes for now, the light remains. Not just here, but more importantly, even within you. Let these teachings, let what we've shared echo through your being like a lighthouse calls over the sea, steady, unwavering, and sovereign. Share what touched your soul, subscribe if you feel the call, and always remember that you are the light, you are the way, and the circle will be here when you need to return. Blessings upon you, Namaste.
God bless everybody. Bye for now.
Bye.